Welcome to the Asylum. And now, your hosts, Rick Fleeger and Rick Briggs.
Welcome into the Asylum Fantasy Sports Show, now a proud member of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. Check out this and many other great fantasy sports podcasts over at fulltimefantasy.com, at Fulltime Fantasy on Twitter, and as always, you can follow your boys, asylumfantasysports.com, at Asylum Football on the tweeters. If you want to be part of the mailbag tomorrow night, you still got time. Get them in, asylumfootball@gmail.com. This show's going to be tough, Rick. Going to be tough.
No,
I don't know how you do a radio show when I'm not talking to you, so this is going to be a problem.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Because
you should be used to it.
Running up the score.
I own you.
And carrying on.
I own you.
You know, in the League of Consequence, the Caveman League, I believe Rick Briggs averages about 74 points a week.
Yeah.
And when he faces me this week, what'd you put up, 230, 240? Thing was over before the London games were over, and he just kept kicking the body. So we're not friends anymore. I don't want to do this show.
Well, we never were, so don't flatter yourself.
That's true. More work acquaintances, I guess.
Yeah, that's it.
This week's going to suck. All the bye weeks, all the injuries. This is a rough one to string a lineup
Yeah, I'll
together.
tell you what, folks. It's Carolina, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Tampa Bay. I'll tell you what. That's fantasy heavyweights there.
And that is apparently where most of my players come from. As I looked at it, I hadn't realized how invested I was on at least three of those four teams. So going to be a rough week. But let's get into last week, I guess. Unless you got something there?
No, I mean, we're fine. Yeah, we're just you're right. It's going to be tough. Carolina on a bye. I know I have quite a bit in Carolina. I have quite a bit in Cleveland, actually, with Jarvis Landry and
your boy Baker Mayfield, who you spent all summer telling me he was Joe Montana's. I'm attacking you today.
It doesn't matter because I own you, so you can sit here and just spout off your oral diarrhea, and I'll sit here with my chest puffed out, feeling pretty good.
Oh, God.
You know what, Rick? I tell you what. Week 6, I would have to say that one of the takeaways I have, probably more than ever, that there's more question marks in the league right now than there were in week 1.
I have never struggled to pick games. I mean, this is individual players from a fantasy standpoint. Right. I don't know who half the teams are in this league yet. I mean, we're both, right at 500 on our picks pretty much both ways. I mean, it's tough to gauge what's going on this year.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. I am 52, 39, and 1 in straight picks.
Yeah, it's not good.
And I'm ahead of you.
Yeah.
And that's just, and we're right at 500 with the line. And it's pretty rough. But, you pull out, I just wrote down some teams, the Rams, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Bears, the Steelers, the Browns, the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Falcons. I mean, those are huge question marks, and there's probably other ones that I just forgot about.
Yeah, I mean, some of you can explain away. I think the Steelers and the Chargers to a lesser degree. I'll play the injury game. I don't know why the Chargers' offense is so bad. Their defense, I can kind of understand it. Obviously, the Steelers, anybody who knows how to play football that's not named James Conner or Juju Smith-Schuster spends most of their time in the training room, and I think those two guys spend plenty of time in there. Yeah, but the Cowboys, here's what we know about the Cowboys, right? I think we actually do know who the Cowboys are. They're a 500 team. Look at those first 3 games. When they play crappy teams, they bludgeon them.
Right.
When they play good teams, they're 0-3 against good football teams. I think that's pretty clear here.
And when we get to the prediction show tomorrow, we're really going to have, well, to me it was kind of a tough one because Philadelphia's in the same boat. That secondary gets shredded.
Right, yeah.
Just by just about any offense in the league.
Yeah,
and
just awful.
Yeah.
It's a weird season, and I don't care for it. So we'll get into that. Let's get into some headlines. Talking about your Rams, Rick. The Jaguars trade Jaylen Ramsey to the Rams. Good move, except for, is Jaylen Ramsey really worth 2 1s? 2 1s and a 4?
Yeah, 2 1s and a 4. That's right.
I don't value that 4 as high, but 2 1s? Wow.
No, but a 4 is still some gravy along with 2 1s.
Well, yeah,
I mean, that
certainly.
is just, to me, I think it's ridiculous because – 'cause, 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 'cause Now they're talking about he may not play till he gets a new contract.
Oh, so he's starting with them already.
And so I don't know what's going on. Do they actually think he's going to make this huge difference? Probably going to make a nice difference in that secondary. But 2 ones at the 2020 and 21 first-round pick.
I believe so. Or was it a 22 first and a 21 fourth? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. Here's my only problem with it. Whether or not Jaylen Ramsey's worth it, I never understand that. I never value draft picks as high. I love the Steelers giving up that first-rounder for Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, me too.
Most of the draft experts, they value picks way higher than I do, and they're probably right. So that's fine. Let's put that in a box. But when you look at that much draft capital being given up for a guy like Jaylen Ramsey, what that entails, what that means generally is the team believes that this is the one player they are away from going to the Super Bowl. Now, their defense hasn't been what it was last year. The secondary particularly has been bad, so I could accept that if that offense could even play football. This team in that division is not close to the Super Bowl, the playoffs, the division win, let alone the Super Bowl. That's where this move's surprising. They've got big problems on offense. You see, as good as Jared Goff was last year and previous to that, how important Todd Gurley is to this, and as this offense flounders and he's still missing games, and even when he's in there not playing as many snaps as you would expect, this offense runs completely through him. He is not 100% right. Jaylen Ramsey is not going to fix that. Jaylen Ramsey can't play the offensive line. Jaylen Ramsey can't help Jared Goff hit wide open receivers. That's where their biggest problem is right now, and so that's where this move is odd to me.
Yeah, I agree, and your point about Gurley certainly well taken. They're 22nd in the league in rushing. And albeit Goff hasn't looked sharp, they still are 7th in the league in passing. So, and be it that out of necessity, obviously,
right,
which makes him a lot less efficient in what you want to see him. But you're right, the defense is 12th overall. Against their pass, they're 11th. And it's kind of tough when look, you're in the middle of the pack. If you look at the Rams' 12th overall offense in the league, 12th overall defense, they're right there in the middle of the pack, right now, playing that way. Ramsey certainly should help the secondary and tighten up the defense, but if they stay 22nd, 23rd, whatever it is in rushing,
it's not going to matter.
It isn't going to matter. You're right.
That was the key to that offense and to Jared Goff's success. Alvin Kamara, Rick, iffy with a high ankle sprain. Good news, I guess, if you're a Latavius Murray owner. Seems like most signs point to Kamara is going to play, but I don't like anybody, let alone a guy with the skill set of a Kamara dealing with a high ankle sprain. Every time I hear those 3 words, I just tighten up. I cringe. You see it with Patrick Mahomes. Some of these guys can play through it, but they're not the same player.
No, he's not the same player. Saquon Barkley didn't play. Kamara will not be the same player. Tevin Coleman did not play.
Is Tavon Austin still in the league?
Yeah.
I'm going to bring him.
Of course he is.
That's a guy I drug around on rosters for years and just never did anything for me.
Well, I know. He was one of your – he was who was that guy that you loved too? Running back. Chargers.
Running back Chargers.
A few years back. Matthews. Ryan Matthews. That was
that was
another one of your love children.
He had a couple decent games.
I
like him. Darius Geisrick expected to be back at practice next week. Still on IR. I think, how's that work? He'll be 2 weeks after being active. I think he can come back and play. I think it's probably good news for the Redskins for fantasy owners. He'll be ID. He had something, I think, that they don't have with Adrian Peterson. This one hurt, Rick. Will Dissly out for the year again, this time with an Achilles tear. He was, I can remember, and I always like to point out my mistakes. I like to think that's what separates us from the other shows out there. I believe after he had that big week was it 2 against the Steelers, I believe. It was, all right, pump the brakes. Steelers refused to cover tight ends. He still willed Disley, and he kind of just kept it going. It was an important part of that Seattle offense right now. So that's a big hit to fantasy owners as soon as that tight end position is, but I think it's a big deal to the Seattle Seahawks as well.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, you saw Russell Wilson leaning on Disley a lot, and, when you have that amount of trust. I'm not going to say caliber of player because, even a player that doesn't really make a splash somewhere else, once he starts building a rapport and trust with a quarterback, he becomes a big deal to both players.
Right.
I mean, to the offense and the quarterbacks. I mean, yeah, that's a huge blow to Seattle, I think.
Yeah, I don't like it at all. Sammy Watkins, Rick, he's out tonight with a hamstring. He's about droppable at this point, isn't he? He's not just sittable. I think he's about droppable. After that huge week 1, even in the absence of Tyreek Hill for how many weeks after, he completely disappeared. How can a wide receiver that talented in that offense disappear? You'll never explain it to me. Never.
And I've never tried to. You know me. I have never bought into Sammy Watkins. That's just who he is. Right. I don't know what it is. To me, he's Tavon Austin all over again. I mean,
well, that's just mean.
You expect so much
right,
when he came to the league. A versatile player, fast, and he just never lived up to it. He either banged up or, like you said, he disappears for no apparent reason.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it when he was in Buffalo so often. Every once in a while he'd pop up and have that big game, and you'd say, finally, this is what we saw in college.
That I could have handled in Buffalo.
Yeah, at least there's an explanation, right? It's freaking Buffalo.
Then he goes to the Rams. Still
up and down, up and down.
Just a roller coaster. Then he comes to Kansas City. All right. Great. Then he has week 1. Tyreek Hill gets hurt. Boy, Sammy is the man.
Yeah, how do you disappear as the number 1 wide receiver in the 2019 Kansas City Chiefs offense? How can you disappear? I just don't get it. I have no explanation. So I'd drop him. See if I don't know if you've got a dummy in your league, give you a Tavon Austin for him, go ahead and make that deal. Otherwise, just go ahead and drop him. This is a Tavon Austin show this week. What else we got? You mentioned Rick Saquon expected to be back. So much for that 6 to 8 weeks. He blows it back in 3 weeks. He must be the new Adrian Peterson. And then we get to the quarterback starts. I'm curious of your thoughts on these 2 moves, Rick. Finally, thank God, Fitzmagic is back. Going to get the start over Josh Rosen this week against the Bills. What do you think of this move?
It was in a conversation on Twitter, about that. I don't know why they're starting Ryan Fitzpatrick over Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen's time as a starter has come and gone. He's done this, that, and the other. And look, this team is a dumpster fire. The season is tanked. And whether or not with all these picks they draft a quarterback next year, Josh Rosen is much more valuable to them at 22 years old, whether they keep him or via trade than Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to. So why not send the veteran out there who's probably better right now? And Ryan Fitzpatrick, what's he care? He's making money. He's going to fling it around.
He's just riding it out.
No big deal.
It must be good not to care if you throw 7 picks in a game.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Bench me? Been there, done that. Who cares?
Every time.
But no, to me it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Protect this investment of Josh Rosen, even though you're not heavily invested in this cat because you got him from Arizona who took the brunt of the signing and the caps hit and so forth. He'll either develop or he'll be trade bait for somebody.
Well, that's what I would love to see. Josh Rosen end up in a good situation. I mean, this kid has had no luck at all. So he goes, to Arizona last year and look, he wasn't good. I readily admit that, but that defense collapses around him.
Right.
The team's pathetic. They get the first overall pick. In comes Kyler Murray, or Kyler Murray, his brother, and he gets sent out to Miami. Another bad situation.
A worse situation.
Now, this season's going to end. He's going to be in the same situation. Miami's going to have the first overall pick. Right. They're going to draft Tua. I ship him somewhere, even as a backup on a good team somewhere. He just here's my brilliant draft analysis. He looks like an NFL quarterback. Yeah, he's big, he's long. He just looks like he's got all the tools. Maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe he's in this purgatory where now he's going to be either back up on a good team or he's going to go to another crappy team in another crappy situation. He could be in Washington next year.
Think off the top of your head. Well, no, I mean Dan Snyder likes Haskins, so it's going to be the Haskins experiment. But think off the top of your head. Well, I tell you, if we could just speak tonight, we'd be fine.
If we could speak, we should get a radio show.
Denver.
Be a good situation.
Certainly a good possibility.
Right.
Dare I say
Tennessee.
Tennessee would be a great spot. Cincinnati.
Yeah, there's a possibility.
Let's see, who else? The Jets are okay. Buffalo's okay.
Yeah, it's kind of limited. It really is.
Yeah, it's limited. I had another one on the tip of my tongue, but I kind of lost it. I mean, Phil Rivers is getting old.
Yeah.
Who's their backup?
He kind of looks like it's done for him. Yeah, we see the end of Eli. I think we're seeing the end of Ben.
Right.
Rivers is right there with him. I think we're kind of the end of that'd be a nice spot to land in.
I mean, there's certain value in protecting this kid, I guess is my point.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you keep him or not.
Yeah, that makes sense. And finally, Rick, speaking of Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill getting the start over Mariota this week. It does nothing for Tennessee either direction, I don't think.
But it tells you how far. It tells you how far Mariota has fallen.
It really does.
And we talked about this back in July in the preseason shows and so forth. That 2019 we thought were going to be how do we put it, make or break years to step up for both Mariota and Winston.
Right.
I think Winston actually has somewhat. I can't say that he's taken the step that we've been describing, but Mariota is just awful.
Terrible.
I mean, he is awful. Granted, he doesn't have the weapons that they have in Tampa
right,
as far as wideouts go, but they certainly have a better run game and better running back. So
he doesn't have it. I
think
it just goes down as a draft buzz. And it's a shame with that defense, with that running back. If you had even a competent quarterback, this should be a playoff team. And it's not going to be because they can't score in the 20s. They can't do it.
And that goes back to like our prediction show before the season started. I think I had Tennessee, I forget what it was, like 5-11.
Yeah.
I just did not believe in Mariota would be taking that step.
That's a playoff defense.
Yeah,
that's
a good defense.
All right, well, that's about all that's worth talking about there. So, takeaways. What other takeaways you got this week, Rick?
Well, I already came up with one with the question marks and so forth, but I'll tell you one other one. Boy, it sounded like the studio is falling apart there. A real quick takeaway, as of right now through Week 6, I think the biggest challenge in New England in the AFC is Houston.
Starting to look like it. They can play.
They can play defense. They can put up points. And they just seem to be a team that's on the way up and not stagnating or with the question marks.
They're just such an enigma, though. It looks like you get that O'Brien style of defense suffocating with J.J. Watt, and then they'll just go on runs where the secondary takes a hiatus, and they're giving up 35 points a game. And, and Deshaun Watson, it seems like real high highs, and, his lows aren't as low as a Mariota or a Winston, but, it's kind of an up and down team. I think, on a 1 week pace, yes, absolutely. I think they could beat a New England. I don't think at this point, do you think, I guess it's hard to judge. It's coming off of 2 losses. Mahomes is banged up. Do you think, as constituted right now, Kansas City could go into New England and win an AFC championship game? I'm not sure they could. That defense is flat bad right now.
Their defense is actually worse.
Right.
I think that this year, I mean, that was another one of my takeaways since we're doing takeaways. I mean, Their defense is no better and more banged up from last year. I've kind of wrote them down here so I wouldn't forget everything I wanted to say. And, Mahomes is the engine of that offense, or that team. We can tell right now when he's gimped up, boy, I tell you what, that is not the same offense.
Now, you have to assume by January you would think this high ankle sprain would be dealt with. You would hope, but if you keep playing on
you
it,
keep
I don't
toughing
know.
it out, you may make it worse.
It's possible.
Is his defense ever going to get any better? I don't know. I mean
the bottom line is we got to watch that stupid Belichick in the Super Bowl again. I just want one Super Bowl without them. They can win the next 3 after this. Give me 1 year off. I've had about enough. I'm over it.
Well, it's kind of like college, running up the score.
True.
You don't want them run up the score, stop them.
That's true, but no, I can't affect that. I just don't want to watch them.
Well, sure
anymore.
you can. I mean, I got to think that Bill and Tom are Asylumites.
So you think they'd be willing to chill out for a year?
You got to be a lot nicer, though. Yeah, you can't say you're sick of it, Bill.
I hate him.
See, that's not going to work.
Oh, well.
That's not going to work.
I don't know how else to speak, Rick. It's just what I do. I hate to do this every week, Rick. Here's how I wrote it down. The officiating, again.
I know.
Again. I mean, this is unbelievable. It's gotten to the point where
it never stops.
You can't trust the integrity of the outcome of these games. And look, this isn't the financial system, political system of a nation. This isn't that important. But I think as important of a part of the NFL is of the culture of the United States, there needs to be some integrity in this thing and some trust in the outcome of these things. And it's being so dramatically affected. It is affecting, and it's, if you believe social media, which I don't always because people only go there to bitch, right? We never go there to say, hey, good job. But from big names, from players, you're seeing it everybody's just had it. That stink fest on Monday night where just 2 phantom calls and just nonsense over and over again. And I'll tell you this, here's how I know it's gotten bad. Rick, did not see any of those bad calls live. I saw them in replay, not because I go to bed at 7:30 like you do, and as such, Monday Night Football isn't an option.
That's just not true.
Because I was watching, Rick, Game 3 of the St. Louis Cardinals at the Washington Nationals in the NLCS. That's how kind of disenfranchised I've become. I didn't have anybody or any games of fantasy consequence in that Monday night game. So I watched Game 3 of an NLCS for one team I hate and one team I don't give a crap about, rather than watch this nonsense. That probably doesn't mean much to anybody else. I think you know me well enough, Rick, to know that's pretty significant. And it's the only thing I can attribute it to. It's just I'm tired of it. It's the Lions playing the Packers on Monday night. Things just happen to go that way, right, every time. So I didn't even see this stuff live because I'm so disenfranchised with the whole thing. I didn't want to watch the game. I watched baseball, Rick. Baseball. I gave up on baseball in the mid-'90s.
It's sad.
It is.
Hashtag
sad.
I don't know what else to tell you, but you're sad. And I sympathize with you because you're absolutely correct. It was brutal to watch that game. And I did watch that game, and it was gruesome. The incompetence.
And that's what it is.
It is. I mean, I don't care about a referee. I don't know how to put it. Like, you see, okay, a guy's called out of bounds on a catch, and you look at the replay and he toe drags and this, that, and that's fine. But when it's not hard when you have a back judge that's back in the secondary from the get-go of the play. Right. And that's what his job is, to watch these people. And you see a guy getting dragged down or pulled and yanked around, and it's like the flag is like glued to his pocket.
Right.
But another team where nothing happens and the laundry comes out almost like they're all on cue.
Yeah. I mean, those hands to the face, they were just ridiculous.
Just
to the naked eye. in real time to look at it. What are you talking about? And there's I saw a still shot today, actually. I just saw it. They were showing, again, somebody was trying to argue the second one could have been a hands to the face, because right at the end they found a still photo of his pinky catching the offensive lineman's neck. But then you look to the right of the picture, and this guy posted it. He must be some kind of Packers defender. I don't know who he was. So he posted that, and then there was 92 comments. You can tell I spent some time in the bathroom today, Rick. I logged some time on Twitter. And all 90 comments after it were, if you look to the right of the picture, there's the Green Bay offensive lineman has a handful of face masks of the Russian Detroit player. So it's like, all right. Yeah. So even if you want to make that ridiculous argument that pinky was worthy of essentially ending the game in favor of the Green Bay Packers.
And you're trying to tell me that at the speed of the NFL, that referee, or umpire, whoever, saw the pinky.
Right.
Bullshit.
Yeah, as simple
as that.
Yeah.
I mean, these calls are ridiculous. And talk about ridiculous.
Oh, all right.
I think I have realized probably, at least in this month or this year, the stupidest person in the world.
I like this self-reflection. Rick.
And it's 24-year-old Richard Perez of Strongsville, Ohio.
Oh, okay. Another Rick.
And you know who he is. Or maybe you don't.
I
because
don't believe Should I know who he is?
Well, yeah, because he had a little incident this weekend.
Was I involved?
He went up to a car that had Myles Garrett in it.
Oh, I did hear about it.
And wanted to know if you get a picture taken. So Myles Garrett, of course, he rolls the window down so he can get a picture because they're in a traffic jam or something. I forget what it was.
I never did hear the details of the story.
He he sucker punches him and runs away.
Well, he was smart to run away. I'll give him that.
Yeah, but and Myles Garrett, he just he called the police and they got his license number and, they identified him and he's going to be arrested and punished, hopefully. But you know what he wanted? He wanted Myles Garrett.
He wanted Myles to pummel him.
Sure,
right, and
exactly.
Sue him. Yeah, these guys are an impossible
What is it with this? And I hate to categorize people, this generation.
No, they suck.
But
they suck. We talked about it last week.
This entitlement, like I can do or say anything.
Right.
And okay, saying's one thing, but you can't do whatever you want.
No. Hopefully they throw the book at this guy because this is just nonsense. Because then if Myles had gotten a hold of him and pummeled him, what would the headline have been? Myles Garrett beats up the fenceless 24-year-old on the freeway.
Yeah.
And then
over a picture or something like that.
Fourth paragraph will say, well, yeah, the guy took a cheap shot at him, but Myles Garrett needs to know he's bigger and stronger and more high profile and he can't do these things.
And then you have the clowns that'll come out, well, he makes millions of dollars, and that's what you signed up for. No, he didn't.
He didn't sign up to get steeled in the face in traffic for no reason. No, he did not sign up for that. No,
exactly. And I don't care if the Cleveland Browns were 0-76.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
You don't do that to a person. Simple as that.
Probably his punishment should be, all right.
Now he gets to sucker punch you.
You can go 30 days in jail, or I'm going to lock you in this room with Myles for 30 seconds. And we're going to turn the cameras off, and what'll be will be. That's what you need. You imagine what Myles Garrett would do to Mr. 24-year-old Mr. What was it, Perez?
Yeah, no, he'd take the 30 days, I'm sure.
I probably would, too. Myles is a bad dude.
Yes, he is.
Hey, the only other thing let's finish up this officiating thing. Rick, here's the problem. Am I oversimplifying? For me, this is so simple. Get rid of the stupid red flags, put Al River on in a canoe and push him out into the ocean and just let's forget he ever existed. This is real simple. Let these incompetent dopes do what they do on the field, but in every NFL stadium, you have another referee up in the booth, the eye in the sky.
Of course.
When you see something ridiculous, they have about 40 seconds. You see something ridiculous like these hands in the face penalties, you hit a button. You're in the head referee's ear and say, hey, stupid, that wasn't even close. Pick that flag up. And the guy, no flag. Move on. None of this pass interference instant replay. Bzz, hey, stupid, that Green Bay cornerback just tackled Kenny Golladay 4 seconds before the ball got there. That's pass interference. No discussion. No worried about who looks bad or looks good. Bzz, hey, stupid. And that solves it all.
Right.
Hey, stupid. It's so simple. And things are still going to get missed. Plays are going to get run before. But my thought is it should be that obvious.
If it gets missed, say like a right tackle flinches and it gets missed, so be it. That's a little bit of human error. That's not a big deal. But these plays that win and lose games have to be managed somehow.
Yeah, and I mean, the argument against this is always, more replay, it's going to slow the games down more. And I'm sensitive to that because I spend as much time complaining about just this endless, every single play has to, I hate the every scoring play, the every turnover, the under two. I hate that because there's no good moments anymore.
You tell me why, and granted it doesn't take long to confirm it, but however, you tell me why Delvin Cook breaks through the line of scrimmage and runs 35 yards for a touchdown, why it needs to be reviewed.
Right. And the thing is, it takes away, this sounds Pollyanna-ish, I get that. It takes away from kind of the electricity and the excitement of a last-minute play, a last-minute touchdown, where instead of flooding out on the field and celebrating and having that moment and the fans just cheering, it's, hold on, we got to go to the booth, wait for 7 minutes, now we celebrate. So I don't need all that nonsense.
And I tell you, there's so much wrong with the NFL right now. And there's people on one of our local stations on here, on the local sports station. They need to eliminate the kickoff, period. Just give it to them on the 20-yard line. Well, number one, that eliminates the onside kick. Number two, it eliminates a squib kick in bad weather.
Right.
And it eliminates the what you call it, the miracle,
Music City
Music
Miracles,
City.
I couldn't
think of it. Yeah, I couldn't think of what I was saying. All I could think of was the Music City Bowl. The Music City Miracle.
Said that. That's a good bowl.
Yeah, it was.
It's probably, what is it called?
I don't have any idea why. And they talk about player safety. Hey, this is insanity. I mean, I never know. Is there proven facts that X amount percentages of concussions come from kickoffs?
I don't know. Probably, but I've never remember
as opposed
reading
to punts?
it. Yeah.
Well,
my stance on punt returns, though. I've made
that
because
clear of the officiating.
Right, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, for those of you who are new listeners, what I propose when I take over the NFL and Al Riveron's job, I'm eliminating the punt return. Every punter's going to kick against an 11-man rush. Wherever the ball lands and stops moving, we're going to move it back half the distance to the goal, and the offense is going to start there because that's what happens on every freaking punt anyhow because they're going to call something on it.
And the blind side blocks.
That's craziness.
It is. It's insane.
There needs to be some room for I know it when I see it. Like that time, I can't remember the name of the poor Bengals linebacker who Hines Ward nearly decapitated. All right. Call that just unnecessary roughness. All right. But to say this every time and we're worried about the angle of a blocker's shoulders and, when we're running sweeps, we're doing things to the outside. They're calling that iffy stuff.
It's
Look,
crazy.
I get the blindside block and getting that out of the game because that is a recipe for a concussion. But again, you create all these rules, just like with this pass interference nonsense. They keep creating rules to overcome this stuff. Just put the eye in the sky. I know it when I see it. Bzz, hey, stupid. We could have eliminated all this nonsense in New Orleans in the NFC Championship game if someone just had the authority to say, hey, moron, what are you looking at here?
It's a contact game, too. Things
that's right.
happen.
Yeah, and you know what you signed up for. And I hate saying that. It sounds insensitive.
A crackback block,
right.
I can see.
Yeah.
But just because the man doesn't see you coming,
that's the other thing.
And you can make a play on a back. Why shouldn't someone be able to block you if his head's in front of you? You're not hitting from behind, even if it's from the side. I can't help it. He's focused on the ball run and doesn't see you coming.
You know what? And that's an excellent point. That's where it's getting called, not necessarily in where it was supposed to be. You're not able to block if you're facing towards your own goal line. To a degree, that makes sense. But now they're talking about, if your front foot's pointed towards the goal line.
On a Tuesday, I know. It's terrible.
But, yeah, they're calling it just based on the fact, and I've seen this several times, that the defender doesn't see it coming. Well, no, if your head's not up, if that's a parallel or coming, because you've seen it even, they're heading the right direction, and they're not looking and they're calling for it. That's nonsense.
It's crazy.
You got to have your head up. That's someplace, hockey gets it right where, they got a lot of rules and they've taken a lot of steps to take these head hits out of the game. But if you go down there with your head down, you're going to get blowed up, and the league isn't going to bail you out. This is something you learn in junior hockey. You got to have your head up and see your surroundings in a contact sport, or you're going to get hurt, and we can't protect you. You have some duty to protect yourself.
Or if it's blatant, you happen to get spun around or whatever the case may be, like in hockey, and you happen to have your head down, and a guy drives you into the wall, you're out,
They're
buddy.
going to send you out. Yeah.
That's at least a 4-minute double minor for boarding. I mean, they take care of things, and they're almost self-governing too.
Well,
you don't see the players in the NHL, and the NHL gets maligned for being the redheaded stepchild of the Big Four. But I tell you what, on many, many things, they got it way better than the other sports.
Well, you know what they'll do that the other sports won't do? If it gets to mid-December and something isn't working, Gary Bettman, over a chorus of boos, will stand up in front of everybody and say, you know what, this isn't working. This is stupid. Here's the new rule starting today. Not starting next year, not starting after a vote of the Board of Governors. Here's the new rule starting today. NHL and NASCAR will do that too.
Right.
Things are getting out of hand if competitive balance gets out of whack. And I haven't watched NASCAR in probably 10 years, but I used to be really into it years ago. If somebody gets some, aerodynamic package set up or something that nobody else could compete with, they would stand up and say, all right, the rules are changing now because we got hundreds of thousands of tickets to sell the rest of the year. We're not doing this. Nobody else, the arrogance of the NFL to say, well, to fix that, we'll just make another rule. We won't enforce it like this pass interference replay.
Or we'll pervert it into something that pisses everybody off.
It's so easily, but it is seriously coming all the way back to the original point. It's taking away the enjoyment of the game to where I'm watching NLCS Game 3 over Monday Night Football. That says a lot to me. Exactly. All right. Well, let's get into it, Rick. That took way
There's not much to get into anymore. We're getting wore out from complaining.
Well, that's why we're going to jump right to
Game ball goes to
Game Ball Stinky Socks. Rick, I will let you start this show.
Well, should I be positive or negative? You know what?
You stink.
Well, the bad mood carries over segments, I see.
Yes, it does. I have to give a stinky sock to the bungle offensive coordinator. The Cincinnati, you allow Tyler Eifert to be targeted 2 times against the Baltimore Ravens. You have been waiting for this guy to finally be healthy. And he's yet to surpass 30 yards receiving in any game. Okay? I mean, it's criminal, and all the offensive coaches receive a balled-up pair of socks stuffed with moldy cottage cheese, soaked in rotten milk, and goat urine.
Goat urine. How do we extract the goat urine?
That's your job.
And you know the shame of it, too. This applies to Joe Mixon as well. Look, I get that offensive line is an abomination, so he's not going to be able to run the ball. Why does Joe Mixon not average 10 catches a week? Why? You can't get a running game going. Make that your running game.
If you're not going to use Eifert as a receiver and you need him to block, why don't you have Mixon and Bernard and 2 back sets?
Right.
And throw out in the flat somewhere to spread it out a little bit.
There is no reason. They say not targets. I read somewhere not targets. The goal for Joe Mixon is 6 pass patterns a game. No. He should have 6 pass patterns per drive.
Yeah.
You cannot run the football. Everybody knows you cannot run the football. So, hey, stupid, don't even try to run the football. Get Joe Mixon out in space somewhere. To your point, throw Gio Bernard out there with him in the slot, pulling a linebacker out, creating some type of space. When Joe Mixon gets the football in his hand and has room to take a first step, he will make things happen. You might get positive yards, which perhaps, based upon the stinky socks that Rick Briggs gave you, you don't understand, is the goal of the game and of the offense. It's so maddening. Look, I fully understand why they can't run. I get it. I don't blame Joe Mixon.
No.
I don't even necessarily blame the coaching staff. He's a dynamic player. Right, but you have to find, when you got a cat of that skill set, that ball's got to be in. It's the fact that he doesn't have 14 targets a game is a fireable offense, in my opinion.
Put this into perspective. Joe Mixon is in PPR scoring is behind Royce Freeman.
Yeah, that
right
can't
now.
happen.
He's behind Chris Thompson, who has a sore toe. He's behind Miles Sanders, who we talked about a couple weeks ago, is hardly viable. He did have a good game this past week.
Look what Philadelphia did. They quit slamming him into a bad offensive line. And what did he have? 6-8 catches? I can't remember what he had last year.
Touchdown,
big game
yeah.
in
I think it was like
reception.
6 for 76 and a touchdown.
What they did is
he
took your big back in Jordan Howard and let him slam into the offensive line who can't move anybody and got Miles Sanders out in pass patterns, and he had a nice game.
Right, exactly. Your turn.
All right. Well, we've been way too negative, Rick. So.
I disagree.
So I'm going to give a game ball, Rick. It's kind of in the same vein of just what you brought up. Now, this is a guy I have crushed, and everything I've said to this point still stands, and he's going to screw it up again. But for 1 week, I'm going to give Steelers offensive coordinator Randy Fichtner a game ball. That was the perfect game plan against that defense with whatever a Duck Hodges is at quarterback and utilizing the talent and the skill you have in the offensive line and at the running back position in the absence of Jalen Samuels, in the absence of James Washington, missing a lot of key guys. I've crushed him. He does absurd things that boggle the mind, but for 1 week he put together the perfect game plan.
He did.
So I got to give him credit. I'm going to give a game ball to Randy Fichtner.
And well-deserved, no doubt about that. I guess since you're being positive.
Game ball goes to.
Here's a guy here who doesn't get talked about a lot and actually is kind of maligned. But, Matt Ryan, he's quietly been forgotten on this defenseless team. He had 30 for 36, 356 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Moreover, he has thrown over 300 yards in every game this year. I'm giving him a game ball.
Yeah,
Matt Ryan, if nothing else, has been playing some pretty good football.
Yeah, and we don't talk enough about it, is that team's just been so bad. They're in one of those years, right? We've talked about it the last couple of weeks. Inexplicably, with the same players and the same talent, they'll just have a 4-12 year, and it looks like that's what's happening with Atlanta here. But Matt Ryan keeps getting it done. The emergence of my mind just went blank. Austin Hooper.
Okay.
I wanted to call him.
I had no idea what
I
you're
wanted to
talking
call
about.
him Amari Cooper.
Right.
Just tongue tied, and then you know how I get.
Yeah, Austin Hooper. Yeah, exactly.
The offense is getting it done.
Ridley, and of course
Julio's
Julio.
still doing Julio
Freeman's
thing.
starting to pick it up a little bit. And you look in fantasy scoring, he's behind only basically the 4 most dynamic quarterbacks in football right now: Russell Wilson, Pat Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and
That's it.
You got him for a song late in your draft.
Right.
All right, time.
That's better.
All right, Rick. Now remember, socks come in pairs, right?
True.
So traditionally we give away a stinky sock. I'm giving out a pair of stinky socks here to teammates to share. They can go wherever they want. Jameis Winston's the easy one, right?
Okay.
400 pass yards, a touchdown, 5 picks, and a fumble loss.
That's not good.
I wish someday scientists can explain to me the enigma that Jameis Winston is. When he is good, he is so good you think he could be that next guy. When he's bad, he doesn't have middle-of-the-road games. When he's bad, he's so bad.
Yeah.
Everybody's been talking about that. We don't got to cover that. The other side, the left-hand sock of this pair, has got to go to his boy Mike Evans. Now, 9 for 96. That's a pretty good game. Drops a wide open, bobbles it down the field. It looked like something out of a Disney movie, when the underdog team's coming back and stuff like that starts happening. That last pick towards the end of the game where Mike Evans turns the wrong direction. There were times, even in a game where he had 9 catches, where he looked completely lost. It's kind of been like this all year. Is he disinterested? Is he upset of the emergence of Chris Godwin. I don't know what's going on with Mike Evans, but even when it's good, it's kind of bad. It's like marriage. Even when it's good, it's still kind of bad. You know what I mean? So I'm even with that big stat line, big stinky sock. I think Mike Evans, more than Jameis Winston, led to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers losing that game over in London.
Yeah, I agree. Let's
Ball goes to.
I'm staying positive, buddy. I was glad to see Hunter Henry come back.
Yeah.
8 catches, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And as pathetic as the Chargers were that game, this could be something of a start where that now they really have to start paying attention to that tight end position.
Well, we know, you go back to Antonio Gates.
Right.
That's what the QB loves. That's what Phil Rivers counts on. That's
but
what that offense
takes
goes
a certain player.
Right.
It's like
Virgil Green wasn't that guy. All right,
Virgil Green wasn't the guy. And we talked about Jimmy Graham when he left New Orleans. Why did he work in New Orleans? He was basically irrelevant the first couple of years in Seattle, picked it up a little bit.
Right.
He's in Green Bay, he's irrelevant again. Nobody in New Orleans is relevant. It's somehow it's chemistry
There's
that builds
connection.
up.
Absolutely.
Gronk. Name a viable tight end in New England.
Yeah, other than Aaron Hernandez, and they were doing it together,
right.
And there was all the murder and stuff.
We don't want to talk about
but
that.
There hasn't been another one, and it's the discussion every summer or every season when Gronk would get hurt or this summer. Well, whoever that tight end's going to be, load up on him. No, it's Gronk.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Why? And I'm talking to the people out there. Why do you think Dallas brought back Jason Witten?
It's right. That was the
it's
missing
not
piece in
because
that
he's
offense.
25 and a super stud,
right?
Young hunk of a guy here. I mean, the guy basically over the hill, but he still gets when the ball's there. He's ready for it. He's going to catch it. And when Dak needs an open guy, he's the guy.
That comfort level for that quarterback.
Exactly.
And certain guys have it. I'm with you. All right.
Game ball goes to.
All right. This is a game ball, a stinky sock masked in a game ball, Rick. I'm doing all kind of wackiness
Wow.
here today.
Do we need a new sound effect or what?
Perhaps. So the game ball, I'm going to give it to Curtis Samuel, Rick.
Hell yeah.
4 catches, 70 yards and a touchdown, and a rushing touchdown.
Right.
Now, you're going to say, Rick, that's a pretty good game, but there are so many guys that put up so much bigger numbers. Why? That's so I can do this. So I can give a stinky sock to all of you charlatan, lying, no good fantasy analysts on my Twitter feed who predicted all summer and all preseason that Curtis Samuel was going to make Jerry Rice look like Dante Moncrief this year. And when he hasn't done it, now Curtis Samuel goes up and catches 4 for 70 and a touchdown, spent 2 days taking victory laps all over Twitter saying, see, I told you, see, I told you. Fools, shut up. The one place you were told, temper your expectations, there will be good games, but they cannot support 1, let alone 2 breakout stud wide receivers in Carolina was right here. And now I got to watch you. I kept my mouth shut, and we just did it. And then for 2 days, I had to watch you ass clowns take victory laps over 4 freaking catches just because he got in the end zone. Look, I like Curtis Samuel. I hope he becomes that guy. He looks like he has the skill set to become that guy. But get back to the theme so far this season. Just shut up. You don't get a victory lap on 4 for 70 and a touch because he threw in a rushing touch. And this is nonsense. All of you can zip it. I've had it. I hate that. I don't know why that bugs me, Rick, but it does. You've been wrong for a month and a half, and then you're kind of right once, and now you're taking a victory lap and thumping your chest all over the place. I hate that stuff.
Hell yeah.
I'm wound up today, Rick.
Okay, one more.
Sure, yeah, let's get out of here before I run everybody off.
Yeah, that's okay. You know what? Shredded again for 442 yards, 34 points. In fact, their -1 fantasy points was better than the last 2 weeks of -2.
That's not good.
The Atlanta defense has amassed through 6 games a total of 7 fantasy points.
With
total.
a defensive head coach. This is what I can't understand.
Their best week was 9 points against Philadelphia in the only win of the season, and they have a grand total of 7 points. They had 9 in one game. Stinky sock.
Yeah, I think they deserve it. Hey, one thing before we'll pick tonight's game and then we'll get out of here. Oh,
that's right, yes.
But I did want to bring up, I meant to bring it up when you were talking about Hunter Henry. Do you think, does this sound stupid, Rick? I was watching, obviously, being a Steeler fan, I was paying attention to the Sunday night game, unlike the Monday, and seeing just how pathetic that offense really was outside of Hunter Henry. I kind of walked away with the feeling that Melvin Gordon coming back kind of upset the balance of that thing, that what they were doing with Austin Eckler and what he was providing in the passing game, it seemed like they were trying to force things into, I think, would Gordon have 3 or 4 catches? So he was out in pass patterns. You rarely saw Eckler. I'm kind of feeling like Melvin Gordon coming back actually upset the balance of that offense. You go through the whole summer workout, the whole program, 4 or 5 games. With this scheme, with a running back with the likes of Austin Eckler, you bring in a traditional running back. It doesn't seem like they were prepared for that yet.
No, I don't think they were. And you also had, we mentioned it last week, the Steeler defense is really tough on wideouts.
Right, yeah.
So who torched him? Hunter Henry.
Yeah, and it should have been Eckler.
But Eckler, yeah. But
I had him as a start, and he wasn't on the field.
Exactly. But Melvin Gordon, you're right. They couldn't get the run game going, and for whatever reason, he's just not Eckler right now, going out in the pass patterns and utilizing him that way. So, yeah, you're right. It could be that, A, they're either upset, Gordon's not in game shape, or he doesn't know the offense.
Right,
whatever. I don't know, but something's out of whack. But you would think in a game of that magnitude, if he's not knowing the plays or whatever on his routes, you would think, okay, better hit the bench and read the book, and we'll put Eckler back in. I don't know what the problem was.
It seemed to me when that offense was going well, and they've had their ups and downs this season, but when things were going well, Austin Eckler was a big part of it. And now Melvin Gordon comes back, and look, by talent, by the metrics, Melvin Gordon is the much better player and probably should be on the field, but it's 1 week of results. That Steeler defense played out of their mind. So you got to give them a nod for that. But it didn't look right at all. And that's the only thing really I felt like changed, right? You got Hunter Henry back. He made big plays. Keenan Allen got shut down. We kind of talked about that. I didn't predict he'd get shut down to that extent, but I did think he was going to struggle a little bit. But Melvin Gordon seems to be the one fly in the ointment. The one thing I can look at and say, when that offense was good, it was Austin Eckler. When that offense has been bad, it's Melvin Gordon. Might be dumb to say, it could look stupid after this week, but just something I noticed. All right, let's get into it, Rick, here in just an hour or two. Thursday night football, the Chiefs laying 3 at Denver. Laying 3. That's a weird line for that game.
Well, they're in Denver. Denver has been playing some really tight defense the last couple of weeks. And I'm not so sure that I don't know what to make of Denver. I had them in 3rd place in that division in our, prediction show way back whenever it was, August. But, we thought they were going to be a pretty tough out. And it's bearing out to be true. They're 2-4. I think I had them at 7-9, something of that ilk. And I think that's about what they are with Joe Flacco. But that defense is there again. Kansas City's got to get it rolling, right?
Yeah.
And either Mahomes, that ankle's going to be okay, or they're going to be struggling like they had the last couple of weeks because their defense isn't going to bail them out. I still have faith in Kansas City. I'm going Kansas City 27, Denver 20.
Yeah, I didn't even have this game close in my head. And then this line, this is what Vegas does to you. It got me thinking a little bit. Now, you can't throw them away, and trends are very important. But let's just say Kansas City had won one of these last 2 games, and you got this line. How quick would you have run to the betting window to lay that 3 with Kansas City?
Right.
Look, Sammy Watkins is out. Patrick Mahomes clearly isn't right, but at the end of the day, this is still, let's say, 85% of Patrick Mahomes versus 100% of Joe Flacco. This just feels, it's just not enough. It's just, I think Kansas City gets it. Kansas City can't and won't lose 3 football games in a row. If Kansas City wins, it isn't going to be by a field goal. I think they kind of run away with this thing. I think they maybe get a big lead, kind of hold on and just grind them out. I got the Chiefs here big 31-16. So easy cover for me.
Okay.
Can we go home? Or go watch this game, I guess.
I'm going home, and I'm going to watch the game.
All right. I'm going to stay in the studio and watch the game. I think I'm no good at home. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. A little angry today. So
that's how I like it.
Yeah, that's kind of what we do. So, hey, we'll be back tomorrow night, asylumfootball@gmail.com, at asylumfootball on Twitter if you want to be part of the mailbag. We will get to those back next Thursday, live and in studio. Till then, good luck this week. We'll see you.
Take care.